The night was very quiet, but it did not feel peaceful. The air was heavy, like it was holding its breath. 15 people sat close together on the cold floor of a small room. Their names were Elior, Mina, Sahand, Roya, Nader, Layla, Kian, Parvin, Yusuf, Shurin, Arman, Tara, Bezad, Nilufar, and Reza. They were simple people. Mothers, fathers, young adults, and older ones too. They were not soldiers. They were not criminals. They were Christians, and they loved Jesus Christ with quiet hearts. The room had no windows. One small light bulb hung from the ceiling and flickered like it was afraid. Every time it blinked, Mina squeezed Roya's hand tighter. Roya was the youngest there. She was only 10 years old. She did not cry. She just kept whispering a short prayer she had learned from her mother. Jesus, stay with us. Jesus, stay with us. Heavy boots walked outside the door. One step, then another. Each step sounded louder than the last. Kian felt his heart beat so fast he thought everyone could hear it. Sahand closed his eyes and remembered the sound of birds in the morning, back when life felt normal. Layla quietly moved closer to Nilufar, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. No one spoke. No one screamed. Fear filled the room, but love filled it too. The door opened with a loud metal sound. Armed men stood there, faces hard and cold. They did not smile. One of them shouted words that made the room shake. The Christians were ordered to stand up and walk outside. Bezad's legs felt weak, but he stood anyway. Reza helped Parvin, who was shaking so much she could hardly walk. Outside, the night air was cold. The moon was high, watching everything. The 15 Christians were lined up in the open space. They could see the dark shapes of guns. They knew what guns could do. Arman swallowed hard. He wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. Tara felt tears fall down her face, but she did not wipe them away. One of the armed men shouted again. He told them to deny their faith. He told them to say they did not believe in Jesus. Silence followed. It was a long, painful silence. Mina looked at Elior. Elior nodded gently. One by one, without shouting, without anger, they said they could not deny their faith. They spoke softly, but their words were strong. The men became angry. Voices rose. The sound of metal moving echoed in the night. The guns were lifted. Shurin closed her eyes. She thought of her little brother at home. Nader whispered, Jesus, forgive them. Roya stepped forward just a little and said, Jesus loves us all. Her small voice cut through the noise like light through darkness. Time felt strange then. It felt slow, like the world had stopped breathing. The guns were aimed. Fingers were close to triggers. The Christians held hands. Some cried quietly. Some smiled softly. They were afraid, yes, but something else was there too, peace. A deep, warm peace that did not make sense. Then something happened that no one expected. A strong wind suddenly rushed through the open space. It came fast and loud, swirling dust into the air. The light near the building flickered wildly. The armed men shouted in confusion. One of them stepped back. Another lowered his gun, looking around like he was searching for something he could not see. The wind grew stronger. It felt alive. Elior felt warmth spread through his chest. Mina felt like someone gentle had placed a hand on her shoulder. Sahand opened his eyes and saw the fear on the faces of the armed men. The fear had changed sides. A loud sound echoed, not like a gunshot, but like thunder rolling across the sky. The men panicked. They shouted to each other. One dropped his weapon. Another ran toward the building. None of the guns fired. The wind slowed. The dust settled. The night grew quiet again. The armed men left in a hurry, not looking back. Their footsteps faded into the distance. The 15 Christians were still standing. Still alive. Still holding hands. For a moment, no one moved. Then Roya laughed. A soft, surprised laugh. Parvin fell to her knees, crying tears of joy. Reza lifted his hands to the sky. Thank you, Jesus, he whispered. They knew they had not saved themselves. They knew what they had felt in that moment: protection, peace, and power that did not come from fear. They did not argue about it. They did not need to. In their hearts, they understood. As the moon shone down on them, Elior spoke gently. We must go now, he said. But we will never forget this night. They walked away together into the darkness, not knowing where they would sleep or what tomorrow would bring. But they were not alone. And deep inside, every one of them knew that their lives had been spared for a reason. They walked for a long time after that night. No one spoke at first. The desert path was rough, and the wind still moved softly around them, like it was guiding their steps. Elior led the way because he knew the land a little better. Mina stayed close to Roya, holding her hand so she would not trip. The moon slowly moved across the sky, and the stars felt brighter than before. When they finally stopped, it was near some broken rocks that formed a small hiding place. Everyone sat down, tired and shaking. Their bodies were safe for now, but their minds were still full of the fear from earlier. Shurin hugged her knees. Bezad pressed his forehead to the ground. Nilufar whispered thank you words again and again, like she was afraid to stop. Roya looked around at all the adults. Why did the wind come like that? She asked softly. Her voice was small, but it carried in the quiet night. No one answered right away. Sahand finally said, I don't know how it happened. He paused, then added, but I know who saved us. They all knew who he meant. They did not need to say the name out loud, but Reza did anyway. It was Jesus Christ, he said with tears in his eyes. He did not forget us. As the night grew colder, they shared what little food and water they had. It was not much, but it felt like enough. Tara tore a small piece of cloth from her sleeve and wrapped it around Parvin's shaking hands to keep them warm. Kian watched the sky, half afraid that the armed men might return, half amazed that he was still alive. Just before morning, footsteps sounded again, very faint, very slow. Everyone froze. Hearts started beating fast. Elior lifted his hand to signal silence. The footsteps stopped. Then a soft voice called out. It was a man's voice, low and careful. Please, don't be afraid, the voice said. I am not here to hurt you. A thin man stepped into the light of the early dawn. His name was Farhad. He lived nearby and had heard the noise in the night. He saw fear on their faces and quickly lowered his eyes to show he meant no harm. You should not stay here, he whispered. It is not safe. Others may come. Fear returned like a wave, but Farhad's words also brought hope. He told them of an old storage building not far away, hidden by trees and stones. It was abandoned. No one went there anymore. He offered to lead them. The group did not trust easily, but they prayed quietly and followed him. Step by step, they moved again, watching every shadow. When they reached the building, it was just as Farhad said, empty, dark, and hidden. It smelled of dust and old wood, but to them it felt like shelter. Inside, the Christians finally allowed themselves to rest. Some slept right away, others sat awake, replaying the night again and again in their minds. Mina dreamed of light breaking through darkness. Sahand dreamed of running water in a dry land. Roya slept peacefully, a small smile on her face. When morning came, danger came with it. Voices echoed outside, not shouting, but searching. Boots moved across the ground. The sound made everyone jump awake. Fear returned stronger than before. Bezad covered Roya's mouth gently so she would not gasp out loud. Lale's hands trembled as she held onto Nilufar. The voices grew closer. One man laughed, another cursed. They were looking for something, or someone. Elior closed his eyes and prayed without sound. Jesus, we need you again, he whispered in his heart. We cannot escape this by ourselves. Suddenly, Farhad moved quietly to the door and looked through a crack. He turned back, his face pale. They are close, he mouthed. Very close. There was no time to run. No place to hide deeper. Panic tried to take over, but then something familiar returned, the same peace they had felt the night before. It came gently, like warm light inside their chests. Tara felt it first, then Kian, then all of them. Outside, the voices stopped. The men argued. One said he felt strange. Another said the place felt wrong. They walked around the building but did not come inside. After a few long moments, they moved away, their footsteps fading again. Silence followed. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Parvin whispered, he is still watching over us. They understood something new then. The danger was not over. Their journey was not finished. But they were not walking alone. Fear was real, but so was protection. And as they sat together in that old building, they knew their faith had only grown stronger, not weaker. Somewhere deep inside, they felt it clearly. This was only the beginning of what they would face, and of what they would witness. The sun climbed higher, and with it came new fear. Light made everything clear, and clarity felt dangerous. In the darkness, they could hide. In the day, they could be seen. Dust floated in the air inside the old building, glowing softly in the sunlight that slipped through cracks in the walls. Elior stood and listened. No voices, no footsteps. Still, his heart did not rest. "We cannot stay here long," he said quietly. "When the day grows older, more people will pass through this land." They all nodded. Even Roya understood. She clutched Mina's hand and asked, "Where will we go?" No one answered right away. Farhad spoke slowly. "There is a village far from here," he said. "Small, poor. People do not ask many questions. But the road is long, and we must move carefully." The group prayed together in silence. They did not speak words out loud. They simply opened their hearts. When they finished, a strange courage filled them again. Not loud courage, not brave shouting courage, but calm courage. The kind that lets you stand up even when your legs feel weak. They left the building one by one, watching every direction. The land stretched wide and empty. Heat rose from the ground. Their feet hurt, and their mouths felt dry. Still, they walked. Hours passed. The sun burned, and the wind stopped. Shurin stumbled, and Nader caught her before she fell. Bezad shared the last of his water with Parvin. No one complained. No one argued. Their suffering pulled them closer together. As the day wore on, doubts tried to creep into their minds. Kian wondered if the men from the night would return with more anger. Tara wondered if they would ever see home again. Armin wondered why danger followed them everywhere. Then Roya stopped walking. Everyone froze. "What is it?" Mina asked. Roya pointed ahead. "Someone is there." Far in the distance, figures moved. Not one, not two, several. Fear rushed back, like a cold wave. Elior's heart sank. There was no place to hide now. The land was open. They stood still, unsure whether to run or stay. Sahand whispered, "Jesus, please." The figures came closer. They were not armed men. They were travelers, tired, dusty, carrying bags and walking slowly. Relief washed over the group, but it did not last long. The travelers saw them too. One of the travelers stopped and stared. Another whispered something. Soon, they all knew they were being watched. Fear changed shape. Now it was not guns, it was discovery. The travelers approached. Their leader, a middle-aged man with a hard face, asked many questions. "Who are you? Where are you going? Why do you travel like this?" Elior spoke carefully. "We are just people looking for safety." The man narrowed his eyes. "You do not look like traitors. You look like trouble." Silence fell again. Roya squeezed Mina's hand. The travelers whispered among themselves. The leader stepped closer. "You should turn back," he said. "This land is not kind to people like you. People like us." Tara asked softly. The man did not answer. He turned away, signaling his group to move on. As they walked past, one of them spat on the ground near the Christians' feet. The travelers disappeared into the heat, leaving fear behind them like dust. They walked again, heavier now. Every stranger felt dangerous. Every sound made them jump. As evening came, clouds gathered in the sky. The air felt thick. Thunder rumbled in the distance. When the rain came, it came hard. The ground turned muddy. They slipped and struggled. Lightning flashed, lighting up the land like fire. Roya cried out in fear, and Mina pulled her close. They found shelter under a rocky overhang. Rain poured down like the sky was breaking. They huddled together, shaking from cold and exhaustion. In that moment, Elior felt something deep inside him break, not with pain, but with honesty. He whispered, "I am tired, Jesus." Others nodded. They were tired of running. Tired of fear. Tired of not knowing. Then something gentle happened. The rain softened. The thunder moved away. The wind cooled their skin. In the quiet that followed, Elior felt a presence, strong, calm, full of love. Not fear, not pressure, love. Mina felt it too. Sahand felt it. One by one, they lifted their heads. Roya stopped crying and stared ahead, eyes wide. "I feel warm," she said. No fire burned. No blanket covered them. Still, warmth filled their hearts. Peace wrapped around their fear like a shield. Reza whispered the name they all trusted, Jesus Christ. They stayed there until night fell again. This time, the darkness did not feel like an enemy. It felt like rest. Elior spoke softly. We will keep going tomorrow, he said. No matter what comes. They lay down close together, listening to the quiet land. Somewhere far away, danger still existed. But right there, right then, they were protected. And deep in their hearts, they knew something important. Their faith was no longer just words. It was life itself. Morning came slowly, like it was unsure if it should arrive. The sky was gray, and the land felt quiet in a way that made everyone alert. Elior woke first. He listened carefully. No voices, no footsteps, only wind moving gently across the ground. One by one, the others woke. Their bodies were sore, their clothes were dirty, but their eyes were clear. Something had changed inside them. Fear was still there, but it was no longer in control. They shared the last pieces of food. Small bites, slow chewing. Roya smiled when Mina gave her the biggest piece without saying a word. That smile gave Mina strength. They began walking again, following Farhad's directions. The village was still far, but closer than before. Every step felt heavy, yet meaningful. It felt like each step mattered. Around midday, they heard engines. The sound was distant at first, like a low growl. Then it grew louder. Kian froze. Sahand raised his hand. Everyone stopped moving. 2 vehicles appeared on the horizon, kicking up dust. Not military trucks, but still dangerous. Any vehicle could carry trouble. There is nowhere to hide, Tara whispered. The land around them was open. No rocks, no trees, only dry ground and sky. The vehicles slowed as they got closer. Fear rushed in fast. Parvin's breathing became shallow. Bezad clenched his fists. Nilufar's lips moved in silent prayer. Elior stepped forward slightly. His voice shook, but he spoke anyway. If this is the end, he said quietly, we will face it together. Roya looked up at him. Jesus will help us again, she said, simple and sure. The vehicle stopped a short distance away. Men stepped out, not armed like before, but their faces were hard. One of them shouted something sharp and angry. The Christians could not understand all the words, but the tone was clear, threat, not kindness. The men walked closer. One pointed, another laughed. Elior felt fear press on his chest. He closed his eyes. Inside his heart, he called out to Jesus Christ again, not with loud hope, but with quiet trust. Then something unexpected happened. One of the men stopped walking. He frowned and touched his head like he was dizzy. Another man looked around nervously. The laughter stopped. Their voices lowered. A sudden strong wind swept across the land again, bending dust and dry grass. It did not hurt. It did not roar, but it felt powerful. The men argued with each other. One waved his hand like he wanted to leave. Another shook his head, afraid. They looked at the Christians one last time, then quickly got back into their vehicles. Engines roared, dust rose, and just like that, they were gone. The group stood still, stunned. No one cheered, no one shouted. Shurin sat down on the ground and cried silently. Nader put his arm around her. This cannot be coincidence, Bezad whispered. Elior nodded slowly. It is not. They walked on, hearts beating fast but steady. As the sun began to fall, they finally saw it, the village. Small houses, smoke rising from cooking fires. People moving slowly, relief and fear mixed together. A village meant shelter, but also eyes. Questions, risk. They entered carefully. Farhad led them to an old woman who lived at the edge of the village. Her name was Masa. Her face was lined, but her eyes were kind. She listened without interrupting. When they finished speaking, she opened her door. You may stay one night, she said. No more. It is dangerous for you here. That one night felt like a gift. Inside her home, they washed their faces and hands. The water felt like mercy. They sat on the floor and rested their backs against the walls. Roya laughed softly when a cat walked across her feet. As night came, voices rose outside the village. Not close, but near enough to hear. Shouting, searching. The danger had followed them again. Masa's face grew serious. They are looking for people, she whispered. I do not know who. Fear returned, but not as sharp as before. They gathered close together. Elior spoke quietly. Whatever happens, remember this, he said. We have already seen that we are not alone. The voices passed by. The night deepened. When everyone finally lay down to sleep, Roya whispered, Jesus stayed with us again. Mina kissed her forehead. Yes, she said, he did. Outside, the stars watched silently. And inside that small house, 15 hearts rested in hope, knowing the hardest part might still be ahead, but also knowing they would not face it without help. The sun rose slowly over the hills, soft and warm, like it was blessing the land. The valley glowed with light. For a moment, no one moved. It felt wrong to rush after everything they had been through. Elior took a deep breath. This is where our paths change, he said gently. Not because we want to leave each other, but because we must live. They stood close, forming a small circle. Hands held hands. Foreheads touched. Tears fell freely now, not tears of fear, but tears of love. Love that had grown strong in danger. Mina knelt in front of Roya and looked into her eyes. You were brave, she said. Never forget that. Roya nodded seriously. I will remember, she said. Even when I am big. One by one, they spoke promises. I will not deny my faith. I will forgive. I will love, even when it hurts. I will remember what we survived. Then they prayed quietly, not with long words, but with open hearts. And once again, that calm presence wrapped around them, steady, gentle, powerful. They did not see anything with their eyes, but inside, they knew. Jesus Christ had not only saved their lives. He had changed who they were. They separated slowly. Each step away felt heavy, like pulling a root from the ground. Elior walked toward the hills. Tara and Kian took the narrow path by the rocks. Parvin and Bezad followed the stream until it disappeared into dry land. Mina and Roya walked together, hand in hand, turning back often until the others were out of sight. The valley became quiet again. Days passed. Weeks passed. Life did not become easy. Some hid. Some moved often. Some lost homes. Some lost friends. But none of them lost their faith. When fear came, they remembered the wind. When danger came, they remembered the peace. When doubt came, they remembered the night the guns did not fire. Roya grew older, but she never forgot. Years later, she would tell the story in whispers, then in courage, then in light. Not as a story of hate, but as a story of protection. Elior would help others escape danger. Mina would comfort the afraid. Sahand would forgive when revenge was easier. Each of them carried the same truth forward. They had stood at the edge of death. And they had lived, not because they were strong. Not because they were lucky. But because love was stronger than fear. And that love walked with them, always. Summary. 15 Christians were captured and faced death because of their faith. In moments where fear was strongest and escape seemed impossible, they chose love, unity, and trust instead of hatred or denial. Again and again, danger surrounded them, guns raised, voices searching, paths blocked, but each time, they experienced protection, peace, and unexpected deliverance. Through the desert, storms, strangers, and separation, their faith grew stronger. They survived not just to live, but to carry hope forward. They learned that Jesus Christ did not only save their lives, he transformed their hearts. Moral lesson. Faith does not remove fear, but it gives courage to face it. Love is stronger than violence, and peace is stronger than threats. Standing for what is right may be painful, but it shapes who we become. Even in the darkest moments, we are never truly alone. True victory is not only surviving danger, but becoming kinder, braver, and more faithful through it. This story reminds us that hope can live in the hardest places, and light can shine even when darkness feels overwhelming. The end.